the next logical operator we will study is OR. Now, just like AND logical operator, OR logical operator has its own properties, and I'm going to demonstrate it using an example, again going back to the roller coaster. If you have a ride which is allowed for families, right, and it's like family oriented ride, and the criteria for riding it is based on 3 attributes. So the first attribute is age. It must be greater than 10. The second attribute is weight. It must be greater than 60. And the third attribute is height. It must be greater than 48. For this roller coaster ride, if any of the condition is met, then the rider can go ahead and ride. Let's take an example and consider that we do not have this logical OR operator. How are we going to write this logic using just the if-else blocks? So in this case, we will have an if statement which says age is greater than 10. If this criteria is met, we'll go ahead and write can ride. Else if weight is greater than 60, we can go ahead and say can ride. So if you see, if age is greater than 10, it will go ahead and print this. Or if age is less than 10, it will keep on going, and it will try to evaluate weight. If weight is greater than 60, it will still allow them to ride. And if weight is less than 60, we have another criteria, which is height. If height is greater than 48, it will go ahead and allow them to ride. And if none of these matches, it will say in the final else block, print cannot ride. So if any of these criteria is met, one of these if block will be executed and it will allow them to ride. And if none of the criteria is met, it will eventually print cannot ride. Now, again, this is a little bit more complicated to follow. We can simplify it using the OR logical operator. So let's see that in action. Let's go ahead and simplify the if-else blocks that we had in the prior example and use OR logical operator to simplify it. How are we going to do that? We'll say if so in this case, we will say if age is greater than 10 or weight is greater than 60 or height is greater than 48. If any of this is met, we will go ahead and say print can ride. And if none of the criteria is met, we will say cannot ride. Okay? All right. So in order to understand that evaluation, we'll have to look at the truth table. Now, if you look at the truth table for OR expression, it looks something like this. So this is Boolean expression 1, Boolean expression 2, and the result. Okay? So if we combine these two Boolean expressions using the OR logical operator, what will the truth table look like? So if the first Boolean expression is true, and the second Boolean expression is also true, the result will be true. If the first Boolean expression is true, the second one is false, the result will be true. If the first one is false, the second one is true, the result will be true. And if both of them are false, only then the result of the OR expression will be false. So in this case, if you see closely, if any of the Boolean expression is true, the result is true. In order for it to evaluate to false, both of them have to be false. All right? So keep that in mind. And now let's come back to our example here. And let's suppose age is 8 and weight of the rider is 70 and the height of the rider is 48, or let's just make it simple and say 40. All right, so how is it going to evaluate this expression? So in this case, we'll say age 8 is less than 10. That turns out to be true. So the result of this evaluation will be true. And now since there is an OR statement, it will go ahead and evaluate weight, which is in our case 70 is greater than 60. This evaluates to true. Now it will go ahead and combine these two using the OR operator, which based on our truth table, true and true or true evaluates to true. So the result of these two will be true. Now it's going to go ahead and say height 40, which is greater than 48. Now this will evaluate to false. Okay. Now when this evaluates to false and the result of this side evaluates to true, and both of them are combined using the OR logical operator, let's go ahead and see what the truth table tells us. So the true or false evaluates to true. So the result of this whole expression will evaluate to true. All right. So this tells us that if any of this condition is met, it will allow the rider to ride the roller coaster. And if none of the condition is met, it will eventually say cannot ride. And these are the properties of the OR operator. Now OR operator also has a short circuiting feature. So let's go ahead and look at that. So if you see here in the truth table, if any of the condition Boolean expression is true, the result is true. All right. And going back to our example, what the computer will say is, I have evaluated age greater than 10 expression, and it comes out to be true. So that means there is no point evaluating these other two expressions, because it does not matter what these expressions evaluate to, whether true or false. The end result will be true anyways. So why bother evaluating these expressions? So it will short circuit these expressions if this expression is true. That's how short circuiting works in the OR logical operator.